Hello, this is David Benime from Excel Consulting. In this video, I'm going to go through the top 10 Excel feature enhancements of the last decade. I have another video where I talk about the top 10 Excel new features, and this is a shorter one that's looking at how existing things that we know and love have gotten better. So let's get started with the list. So here I am in Excel, and I'm going to go count down all of these top features. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a like button and subscribe to my channel because I have tons more videos on Excel, PowerPoint, Power BI, other Microsoft Office products, Google Sheets, and I'm going to do a lot more of this nature, which is what's happened in the last 10 years as well. So let's start with number 10, which is the Pareto chart. Now, this is the problem with a regular column chart. If you have repeated data like this, it doesn't aggregate the data. It gives you repeated columns for each person's name, which is not what we want in many of the cases. Now, if you're a pivot table user, you probably know that you can achieve this through a pivot chart, but sometimes you want it a little bit faster than that. So with the newer version of Excel from 2016, you can select your data, go to Insert, and here you have a Pareto chart. Now, this is not the purpose it's built for, but I love it for this feature. It already pre-aggregates it. So Robert Downey Jr. is there, Chris Evans. It also sorts it from biggest to smallest, which is lovely. This line here, this is the Pareto line. Now, a lot of the time I don't want this, so I can right-click on it, format, and make it no line, and delete this as well. I have a longer video on the Pareto chart because I think it is a really, really cool chart that I use a lot, and I think it's worth knowing what it does, and this is just one of the things. All right, so next we have Count Unique. Now, what's the issue here? If I create a pivot table, I want to know how many different genders there are for each movie, say, I get this. So this is saying that this movie has 3 genders, or let's say, for example, that I do it by actor. Chris Evans has 4 genders. Scarlett Johansson has 3 genders. So it's not really giving us what we want. Now, in order to get around this, in Excel 2013, they released a feature where you can select your data, go to Insert Pivot Table, and then click this, add this to the data model. Now, we're not going to use the data model's more sophisticated stuff, but we're going to click on that because that's going to unlock a feature that we can't use otherwise. I'm going to put it there, and then I can go to, say, movie, and I'll go for gender in the values column. That is count. It's the same as we saw before, but I can sort of right-click, summarize by, and click more options here. And then if I scroll down to the list, I get a distinct count. There we go, 2, 1, 1, 2, 2. Now, just to emphasize, in the normal one, the distinct count is not available. The distinct count is only there if I ticked that box. That box does another really, really special thing that I'll cover in a later tip, but I'll get to that shortly. All right, let's keep going. Number 8, split column. Now, some of the Excel people might know that you have a feature that's existed for a long time that's called text to column. So I could say that I want to split it with a semicolon, click finish, and then it splits it in different columns according to that. But that is a little bit limited because it allows me to, oh, there's a crash. Sorry about that. All right, I will get back to it. So moving on to the next one, we have split column. Now, a lot of Excel veterans will know that you can, if you have data like this, you can say that you can split it into multiple columns at the semicolon, for example. If you select it, go to the Data tab, you choose Text to Columns, delimited, next. I'm going to say it's a semicolon, and I can click Finish. All right, moving on to the next one, split columns. Now, if you're an Excel veteran, you may have used this feature where you can say you want it to appear in multiple columns and broken down where you have this semicolon. So for example, if I have this, I can go to the Data tab, click Text to Columns. I'm going to choose Delimited, and at a semicolon, make sure that's ticked. It's going to give it a split. Click Finish. And there you go. So this is how it's giving it a split based on that. But that is a little bit limited. For example, you can only enter the one character. So if people use like the word and as delimiters with spaces, that doesn't work. Plus, you can only sort of split. You can't extract certain parts of it, which is often what I want to do instead of split. Now, Excel is a huge upgrade called Power Query that got put into the product in 2016, even though you can download it for free from Excel 2010 if you have an older version. Now, to do that, you put your data like this, and then you go from Table Arrange. And this is a whole new screen that's not even Excel anymore. The amount of capabilities of this can now do is unbelievable. So I can go to this column that's using the delimiter with and I can say split column by delimiter. You also have lots of other things like lowercase to uppercase or digits to non-digits. I'm going to do that one, and I'm going to split it at a custom delimiter that is space and space, which is pretty good. Then you can press OK, and it splits it like that. But what I like even better than that is editing it. So let's do it again. Split column by delimiter. Let's do this, space, and then I can choose only split at the leftmost, the rightmost. But I love this option, split into rows. Press OK, and it actually now doesn't create more columns, it creates more rows in your data. And this is kind of what you need to do if you want to analyze how many times is the term filter mentioned? How many times is the term merging cells filter? This is what you need to do. You need to split it into rows rather than columns. So I really, really like that. And then once you're done with your data, you can press close and load, and it would create a new table that you can either load to your workbook or not. All right, data labels. So in this version of Excel, you have a new feature of what you can do to charts. So this is the way that I always like to do actuals versus budget charts. I have a video explaining how to do that in more details that I have links to in the description below. However, what I'm going to show you how to do is how to create a data label, which is this difference value. So this is new in Excel 2013. I can click here, and I can go right click and add data labels like that. And that gives me, by default, it gives me this budget number. But I want to change that to be this difference column. So I can click here, right click and format data labels. And I can choose value from cells. Select the cell range. I'm going to choose this difference column. And by default, it gives me both of them, the value from cells and the value. But I'm going to take off the value and just have the difference. So I can see it's showing the difference there. You can edit it with select range there. This feature only came in Excel 2013. And I really, really like this feature. Power BI doesn't even have a way to do this yet, which is really awesome in Excel. Set pivot defaults. Now, traditionally, Excel's pivot tables appear sort of like this by default, but you can change them. For example, if you go to design, you can change it to be maybe show in tabular form and then repeat all row labels and then take off the subtotals and the grand totals. And these things can be really useful, but if you just always want your pivot tables a certain way, you might not want to do that every time. So in the newest version, Excel 365, you can now go to File and then Options, then Data, and then you have Make changes to the default layouts of pivot tables, edit default layout. So I could say that I can choose what to do with subtotals, grand totals, report layout. Those were the three options I showed you there, including repeats, what to do there. And you can even do further options over here as well, what to do with errors and empties, how to display it, printing, etc. But what's really cool actually is you can click on import and you can just import the one you already have. So I can import the pivot table there, and it's already put those as the default. Press OK. And what that means is now when I create a new pivot table, let's do it next to the other one just to see how it's going to show. And then I'm going to have movie, actor, and minutes. You can see it's already doing the same format. So I've reset my defaults, and that saves for every time you open Excel. That happens to every Excel file that you might want to edit there. All right, that's halfway through. Let's keep going. So I have more pivot table stuff coming up, but first, another Power Query thing. So no code if solutions. So ifs are really, really essential in achieving higher levels of Excel. Branching, exceptions, it's so useful to know if formulas. However, those get really tricky if you have multiple things. So here I have 4 outcomes. So if it's female, then I want it to say cool. If over 30 minutes, it should say plenty. If movie says Avengers, it says team. Otherwise, it says other. Now, if you're using the if formula, for every new option, you actually need another if formula, -1. So here I've got 4 options. I need 3 if statements. If this, then that. Otherwise, if this, then that. And God, I don't know if you've ever tried to use if formulas with a wildcard, but in this case, that I wanted to test for the word Avengers. That could either be at the beginning or in this case at the end. It gets really, really tricky really fast. So let's see how that can be made better with Power Query. So I can go to data and I choose from table or range. If your data is not already using the format as table, you get this prompt. You can press OK. You get this pop up here. And then I can create add column, and I have a conditional column. I love this feature. It's beautiful. You could say if movie, oh well, let's do the same one. If gender equals female, then cool. Add clause. If minutes is greater than or equal to 30, then say plenty, add clause, and just keep going. And as you can see, there's no coding that's going to do it here. So now I can say if movie, ta-da, contains. How lovely is that? None of this search and is number. It's just really, really hard. One key thing about this, it is case sensitive. So if I put a lowercase a, it doesn't work. Then team, and then otherwise, I'm just going to say other, change the name there. So query, okay, like that. And what's really cool about this as well is you can go back to it and edit it here. And if you decide, hey, actually this is more of a priority, I can move that however I want and reposition them, and then that changes this kind of layout. So I really, really like this feature. It's so much nicer and easier to use than writing complicated nested if functions in the regular Excel. By the way, if you are using a lot of complicated nested if functions, I do recommend the switch function that got launched with Excel 2019 and with 365 as well. But definitely the Power Query option is beautiful. All right, number 4, workbook statistics, Excel 365. So this is just sort of a proofing tool that's a really, really simple thing that I really, really like. So in the review tab, you have this thing called workbook statistics. If you click on that, it just comes up with a list of things about your data. So current sheet stuff. So where's the end of the sheet? So the last cell that's formatted. How many cells have data? How many tables are there? So that's I've got the orange one and the blue one. How many formulas are there? Objects, and then stuff about the entire workbook as well. So that's a really cool sort of proofing tool there. That's in the review tab. All right, kicking off our final 3, we have another pivot table one, and this one uses the same feature that I showed you earlier. So if you select your data and you go to Insert Pivot Table and tick this box, add this to the data model. Let's do it in the existing worksheet here. Like that. Now, one thing that I find stops people using pivot tables is the lack of flexibility. You can sort of change some formatting as we saw earlier, but you're a little bit limited. You can't, for example, add a row, like here if I try to insert a row or a column, it tells me it can't do that. So a lot of people shy away from using pivot tables because of the lack of flexibility. But if you click that button, you can do this. Analyze, then you can choose OLAP tools, convert to formulas. Now I don't really understand OLAP tools very well. I just know that this is glorious. Convert to formulas. So now it's replaced these with formulas called cube member and cube value. You don't need to worry what that is. It's just that it allows you to do whatever you want. You can insert, you can cut and paste, you can change formatting options, absolutely anything you want. And it is updated live. Refresh it in the way I would do a normal pivot table with refresh all here to get it to bring out the data. One thing that it doesn't quite do is if you have new things that are added, so if there's a new actor, then that wouldn't be added down to the list over here because it doesn't grow automatically like a pivot table does, but it does, these numbers do update as well. I have another video where I talk more about that feature. Links in the description below. All right, last 2 features, filter, search and filter. So here, I really like this. It's a really, really small feature, but if you add a filter in Excel 2010, you can now search here for whatever you want. So you can, here I can, for example, search for Avengers, and there are 2 types of Avengers there. It's amazing how long this feature existed, and I didn't know it was there. So if you don't know it's there, it's really good. So please learn it because it's brilliant, really, really useful. You can also search in the pivot table list here. This came in 2016 there. But the the filters is really, really useful. Very, very short one. And finally, my last one, comments. Now, most Excel users use comments, and I don't think these are really comments, and neither does Excel anymore. This is a note. This is just something about a cell that pops up there when we want to see it. If there's a note down here, it's really hard to see. It's just not very coherent, and we can't get them all in one place. Plus, like, we all use social media. We know that comments is something that you want to be able to mention people. You want to be able to reply. You want to be able to resolve them. Like, say that, okay, that's done. That's finished now. So Excel did something very, very brave in that they took the feature formerly known as comments and renamed it to something called notes. Because now, if you go to the review tab with Excel 365 and you click new comment, you get this new experience. See, it says use @ to notify someone else. So you could write whatever you want and then click here to lock it in. And then people can reply and you get this thread that happens. As you go along, you can click this and you can click delete or resolve, and that means that it's just kind of done now and it's kind of grayed out. You can reopen it from there, and in the show comments, you just get this sidebar with all of the comments in your entire worksheet, which is nice. As you can see here, I have @mentioned my colleague, Mackay, and he has responded to it. This is how Excel comments are working now, and it is beautiful. It's so, so good for collaboration. So yeah, that's my top 10, and I really love this comments feature. It's brilliant. That's my number 1. If you like this video, please like the video, and if you have different ideas, other feature enhancements that I might have missed, please leave your comments in the descriptions below. You can subscribe for more content like this. I have other videos of top 10 of the decade coming up about PowerPoint and Power BI and other Excel ones as well. All right, great. Thanks for watching.